talking about the majority of the leaves of the top of the lulav got cut off? Some of the leaves on the top of the lulav got cut off? Is it just a specific leaf the Mishnah is talking about, the Gemara is talking about? So Rashi talks about a number of leaves. Niktam Rosho, Rashi's from Rashi, it seems to be indicating he's talking about. It doesn't identify. It's referring to a majority or just some leaves. But if the top of the lulav, the leaves get snipped on the top, the Mishnah says it is pasul. That's what the Mishnah says. And in the halacha, it doesn't say what's the size of that clipping. It would sound like any amount from this language of Naktam Rosho, it would sound like any amount of that top that gets cut, it would invalidate it. And the Gemara is going to the tip. So in the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Tuf Reish Mem Hey, Tiv Zayin, the way he brings right. So the Shulchan Aruch says the majority of the upper leaves. So that means you look at a lulav and you have all those leaves on top of the lulav that come to the top of the lulav. So if the majority of those leaves get snipped, Shulchan Aruch doesn't say how far the cut was. It says if it gets snipped, then it is pasul. The Shulchan Aruch says the lulav would be pasul, and the Mishnah Berurah, the Chafetz Chaim himself says that the Shulchan Aruch does not clarify. Is it that majority of each leaf got snipped, just or any amount? And he quotes that the levush is strict, even if it's any amount, and that would any amount of the top leaves. If the majority of the top leaves got snipped somehow, the majority got snipped. Majority of those top leaves got lifts. Any amount of the snipping, even the small amount of snipping, if it's a majority of the leaves, you should be strict according to the levush. Now the Shulchan Aruch, the Rabbi Yosef Cairo does not make a difference between the middle leaf that goes from the spine all the way up to the top, or any other leaf. He doesn't make a distinction. But there are those that the Ramah, the Ashkenaz rabbi, talks about if the top middle leaf gets cut, that he says that would also invalidate it. Not just the majority of the leaves get cut, but if even one leaf, meaning specifically that middle leaf, that's called the tiyumit, gets cut, that would invalidate the lulav. So that is now. So now the Gemara is medayik. The language, one assignment. The Mishnah stated if it gets cut. Amar Rav Huna. So Rav Huna says, what's the law if it gets split? That the top of the lulav, which would mean the majority of the leaves of the lulav, would split. As you know, each leaf is folded over. Each leaf is like a double leaf. So if those leaves get split, what would we say? What would be the halacha regarding the lulav if those leaves split? Do we look at the leaves that split as the same as getting snipped, or not? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna. Rav Huna says, Lo shanu ela niktam. So Rav Huna says it's only this Mishnah is only talking about if it got snipped, if it got cut. Of all nitzdak, we are on 31b3. But if it gets nitzdak, if it's split, kosher. He says if it gets split, it would be kosher. That's the opinion of Rav Huna. And logically, the way he would understand, because if it is true that if the leaves get split, it would be invalid. So then the Mishnah should have stated the bigger chidush. The Mishnah should have stated not that it actually got snipped and removed, even when the leaves are there, but they just split. It is invalid. So certainly you would say that if it got snipped, if it was removed, it would be invalid. If it got cut. So that's the
splitting is organic, right? The splitting is a natural happens. It's not
true.
right. The splitting happens naturally.
Right. Usually it's something that happens naturally.
It's not like if you cut it vertically, it's okay. That cutting it vertically, I think, is also pasul. If it splits on its own, if you cut it, it doesn't say if you cut the tip off, it's pasul, right? Right.
It says it's
pasul. If you cut it where the leaf, as you say, bends over, the leaf has two sides to it. You cut it vertically, I think also pasul.
So that's going to be the question here. Right, the Shulchan Aruch will that's the question here in the Gemara. The Gemara is trying to identify this point. The Gemara here says that if it gets split, the Gemara says it would be kosher,
right?
And we definitely we are very careful about that middle leaf, that the middle leaf shouldn't be, if the middle leaf gets split, depending how far the leaf goes down, that we're very strict about. But if one,
what do you mean the middle leaf? The outer leaf?
The leaf that goes, the spine, the way the spine goes,
right?
You have all the leaves that come up from the spine, but
right.
When the spine, so here the leaves go like this, they go like that, they go like that. But then at the end, the spine that remains eventually itself turns into a leaf, right? The spine itself, the spine. Here's the spine of the lulav, and then as the spine goes up, the leaves are. What happens is they start separating. The leaves start separating from the spine, right? Maybe I'll show you. Let's see a picture if that will make it a little clearer. I feel bad. I can't find the lulav that we had yesterday. I thought I put it away.
You should bring one in.
I got to bring another one in. And as the lulav,
I think the outer leaf is the one that is like attached to the spine, and they're all attached to the spine.
Right. But what happens is the spine separates. Maybe I'll read it. Maybe I'll read it. Let's see. There is it goes like this. The twin leaf is the middle double leaf growing from the top of the lulav spine and forming its tip. The spine is the core from which all the leaves branch out. At its top, it progressively thins until no new leaves branch out. At this point, the core itself becomes nothing more than a leaf. That is the twin leaf. So let's take a look at some good pictures that we might have. So here in this picture, let's take a look. Here, the tiyumas. You see, if you look at this picture, things that are constantly coming out, branching out here, and at some point there's no more branching out. This is the middle leaf that comes down to the top. So I mean, Mark, this got such a great picture, but here, what happened? You see this. This is spread. This is going to the side. This is coming here. At a certain point, there's no more branching out. What's left, instead of whatever that middle leaf, is going to be the one that's the middle leaf that we're referring to. Sam Max, I don't see the lulav, but I feel bad about that. I have to get. I don't know. Put away the lulav. And the etrog, I don't know what happened to the etrog, so I have to bring in a new etrog. We're not usually focusing. Tomorrow's not talking about etrog text. We got etrog. I feel bad about that. So what did you say? Yes, tonight's a big night. So the tiyumas is that middle. Remember, is that clear, everybody? When you have the spine of the lulav, and what happens is leaves start branching off. If you look at the lulav, you'll see it goes like this. Leaves are starting to branch out from that spine. And then, but the one leaf that doesn't branch out, that's the middle leaf. That's the spine that's called the middle leaf, that turns it to middle leaf. So that leaf, the Gemara is going to talk a lot about that leaf later on, and that's a unique leaf. If that leaf splits, and then the question is how far that splits, then that gets into questions. If one other leaf split, that would not be such a big issue. All the other leaves, all the other leaves that go that way, right? Exactly. So if one of those leaves, there wouldn't be an issue. The issue would be if many of those leaves would split, would be the problem. So here. Right, but those rings are more for beautification purposes. You're saying maybe it will prevent it from splitting also. That's what you're saying. Maybe it could be helpful that it won't help split. But the purpose that we use the rings is more to beautify the lulav. So here the Gemara is talking about, so far we're talking about what's the law if it splits. The Mishnah was very clear. If it gets cut, it is no good. And what gets cut? We're saying a number of leaves on top gets snipped off. That would be no good. But now the question of the Gemara is, what about if it splits? That's the Gemara's question over here. Split naturally. I mean, right? Knife with a cut means you cut it. It's not there anymore. If you would go ahead and split, so that's
not this way. Cut it this way, or if it splits naturally this way.
Right. If you cut it that way, right? But again, if you cut it this way, and now it's split, right, but it's intact, meaning you didn't remove any pieces. That seems to be the same. We treat it as the same as a natural split. There's something called when you cut it, it's no longer the top is not there anymore, or the tops of that's called nikdam. You cut it away. It's gone. Here we're talking about it was split. However, it's split. So comes this opinion, and we're going to have to, tomorrow we'll look more into the halacha about it. But here, this opinion in the Gemara states that it's kosher. He says that it's kosher. Nitzdak kosher. And then the Gemara is going to question that. Nitzdak kosher? If it's split, it's kosher. Vatanya. We learned in a Braita. Lulav kafuf. If a lulav is bent, if it's kafuf, now it's bent down. It's not the normal look of a lulav. So we have a picture over here that it looks like, if you see, I don't know if could you see this picture, that it comes down like a hook, or the lulav is bent in that fashion. So we say that's a problem. It's no good. Now we're on 32a. Havutz. If the lulav, if there's thorns, it's not thorns, but it's Rashi says it's like it's things that are sharp that grow out of the spine of the lulav, and it's like a thorn. So you have little stuff like hairy stuff that comes out, and it would prick you. It would hurt. It's like a little thorn that's growing out of the. So if this would be the lulav, and then you have these little things coming out of the lulav, and they prickly, that also would be invalid. That would invalidate the lulav. And saduk, and here it says if it's saduk, if it is split, also. the Gemara is going to discuss more about this in a moment, about this bend. But here, it might depend meaning the natural curve. I mean, if the Gemara is going to talk about if it curves back, it's normal for the lulav to curve back, but not to curve forward. We're gonna see that in a moment. So Gemara is going to clarify. So Duke. So now he said akum. Again, there's two things. The first case of the Gemara was that the lulav is bent over. So the bent over, we're talking about that it looks like a hook, that type of bend. It's like a guy, that type of bend would invalidate the lulav. But that's unique. It's not that the whole lulav is bent. It's just that the top of the lulav is bent over. The top looks like this. That will